I taste your energy. I see a light that I never knew. You are overtaking me, mesmerized, paralyzed. When your eyes find mine, that's when you leave me. Ocean lost, the world drifts around me. Ocean
Hello, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and welcome to another official roundtable for Neosland. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you who are new to the show and don't know what Neosland is, it's an MMORPG that is being designed by us, the players. And so these roundtables are to put together different subjects of how we want these things to act and work within the game. So far, it's one world. And so that means that, whether we have 10,000 people online or we have 50,000 people online or even more, it's all happening in one world. It is medieval fantasy. So, of course, there's swords and sorcerers. And dragons, of course. I can't wait to meet my dragon in game. And, have this love affair. I don't know what my wife is going to think, but, just saying. So... Welcome, everybody, on the Hangout. Thanks for joining.
What up?
What up? That must be evil. So,
Yep.
yeah. So we've got a topic today, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. We are talking about death and resurrection, and so with death and resurrection. I know that we haven't got combat ironed out all the way yet, but we do have that death is certain, and that there's obviously got to be some way to get your character back into the game, and so. Does anybody have any initial thoughts? And I think this is probably going to be two parts. What happens during death and how do we get resurrected? But so let's start with death. What do y'all think?
You're dead. Your loot is mine. That's all I need to know.
Okay, so you want full loot?
Damn Skippy, unless it's soulbound, which case I can justify not getting that.
And I don't think that there's going to be a huge amount of soulbound items, but there will be some.
Yay, more loot for me.
Okay. One of the things that I've thought of with death is that there should be the greater the risk, the greater the reward. And so if we are in an area that has really good resources, whether that be loot or high-level monsters that you get good stuff from, or it be mining materials or whatever, that maybe there should be a lot more risk of the items that you're going to lose. Thoughts on that?
I think anything that you have on you when you die, unless it's soulbound, should just drop. I don't think it should be something that some of them drop. I mean, it also depends on how you die. For instance, if you're carrying a bunch of books and I fireball you to death, the fireball should have the chance of burning the books up.
Oh.
Which, I mean, I can see, and I would totally support if there were items destroyed in the process of killing you. But if I come up and slit your throat from behind, other than your shirt being ruined, I don't see why, all your equipment would fail to drop. I think it should be completely situationally dependent on what's used to kill you. You fall into a pit trap, your armor might not be very good, but then you have some scrap metal to make other armor out of.
But if you fall to the ground by being killed, you crush all the herbs in your bag.
Yeah,
Don't
something
fall
like that
down.
makes total sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Those potions, they're now leaking down your leg because you had them in your pocket.
Wow, I did not need that image.
And everybody wonders what the hell just happened.
Or you carry 2 potions with you, so when you fall down, they both crack and your body blows up to killing the person next to you.
Oh, so they must be purple potions, explosion potions.
So wrong.
Hey, I can tell you, I accidentally killed my pets in Ultima Online. Very first day in the game, I figured out how to train animals, tame them. And I had this cat and a dog, and I named them after my real life cat and dog. And then I found this potion just sitting on the ground, or it was in a alchemy shop or something, that was a purple potion. I didn't know what it was. So, I just try and use it, and it starts having this timer and gives me a cursor to throw it. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should throw it. And I throw it. Well, it lands right next to my cat and dog, and it blows up and kills both of them. And I was horrified. Okay, so that was just a fun story.
Wow.
My experience, first time, I felt really bad. I never, ever, after that, named any of my virtual pets after my real-life pets. Because I all of a sudden just thought, oh my god, I just killed my pets. So
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say dropping all items on death is disastrous. Reason so, yes, there are Care Bears in every game. There are people who pride on their loot. Now, what happens, for example, let's say I'm playing the game, I get a blue screen of death. Right? My PC restarts. Somebody comes out of the woodworks and kills me. How is that fair that I should lose everything, or server lag, or any reason that something happens where if I die, I lose all my loot? Right? So we got to play the devil's advocate here and say, yeah, losing all your loot could be cool, and some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it. It's finding that common ground. Maybe a random item out of your backpack drops, picked at random, and then if it's the epic sword that you had, it's the epic sword you had, or it can be the used tissue that you had in your bag too. So I think there has to be a medium between the two that we can use and say, yes, that's something that would be implemented into the game.
What we could have is percentage-wise, say sort of overall maximum you have 60% drop out your bag, but it also depends on player versus player. So if you have, say, someone with 100k skill points versus someone with 10k skill points, then the percentage that drops will be absolutely minimal, because it's an unfair advantage for the person with all the extra skills.
That's a really interesting thought. It actually de-incentivize the having high level players or highly skilled players from killing noobs.
And this is skills in combat. So someone that's got 200 million in manufacture getting killed by someone that's got 100k in attacking and defense, that wouldn't be the same. It would have to be in defense and attack skills only.
You can make it so it's proportionate to, like, if there's a large gap between your skill level and their skill level, the less items drop.
I think that's exactly what he's saying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, for example, let's say, I'm a newbie and some super epic guy runs by me and kills me. I shouldn't lose anything at all because there's such a huge gap between the levels.
I actually really like this idea. Because
I don't at all.
Well, it allows
I'm with
you.
Eagle on that.
Okay, why?
Because it makes absolutely no friggin' sense whatsoever. Just because there's a huge level difference does not mean that your loot drop changes. If a newbie player manages to kill a highly skilled player, which
then
in
he
and
would
of
get
itself,
it all.
He would get it all. But on the flip side, that newbie player has no clue what those items are. Unless there's like a tag or something. He has no idea what he's got. Maybe that really skilled player had absolutely no magic on him whatsoever, and he was just using a really well-made sword. And that's it. Okay, but that newbie player's got to go out. He's got to have it identified. He's got to find out what the stuff was. Your skill level in anything unless it's an item is soulbound to you, should have nothing to do with what loot drops. Now, back to the blue screen of death, which is a legitimate issue. There should be a mechanic in the behind the scenes that if your computer stops transmitting to the server, in other words, it's disconnected for some reason, and you have a player come up and attack you.
The problem is that reason can be Alt F4 as well.
Well, regardless,
Alt F4 is seen the same thing as a blue screen.
Well, I don't know the mechanics of that. I'm just saying that the blue screen of death issue is a completely legitimate complaint for losing all your items.
Yes.
I don't see the argument here.
Yeah.
Well, he specifically asked about the blue screen of death.
No, I'm saying before this, what your counter argument to having it scale, the loot scale, to a high and low B.
I don't think there should be any loot scale. If a high level player kills a low level character, he's going to get some crap weapons and some crap stuff. There's no financial incentive there. He may take it, he may leave it. If a high level player gets killed by a low level player, the low level player may get all his stuff, but he's still got to go out and spend money to have it identified, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the stuff he's going to get is going to be of high value.
But you're basing this off a system of identification. That hasn't been announced in the game.
Yeah, but that's something we've all been pushing for.
Yeah, but I mean, if I loot something off your body, why do I have to have it identified? It's already off your body. It's been identified. If I loot something off a mob, then it's already identified.
No, they haven't said that it is identified. I've been pushing entirely for, unless you have the skill to identify an item, that you can't identify it.
I would agree with that. I like that.
What I'm saying is, based off the death penalty that we're talking about right now, you're basing your counter argument off of a system that's not even in place yet.
Well, none of this is in place yet. We're arguing it. That's why.
It makes no difference if the higher level guy drops stuff or not. I mean, you're saying he drops it all. I'm saying he'll drop a majority of it to a lower level player.
Something in?
That's working the same way as the higher level player will drop stuff whatever. I'm saying if you have a high level player going around killing newbies, he shouldn't be able to loot anything that this guy has. So he can't go around killing people that have been farming for 2 hours, got no skill points in weaponry or anything like that. So therefore, the guy gets everything. If you're killing newbies who are just going out collecting wood, being a high-level character, all you do is go around to all the farming areas, kill all the players there, not be able to be killed yourself because you're high level, and then just collect all the wood yourself. I want to try and prevent that. So if you don't have people farming...
It's another type of farming.
Farming the farmers.
Well, no matter what you do, everybody's going to find something to farm. It doesn't matter what way you look at it. They're going to either find, they're going to farm other players or farm gold, or they're just going to farm something. There's no way possible to stop that from happening at all.
I want to hear what Marcel has to say. He's our role-playing guy here, and he may have some good insights.
The role-playing expert.
Okay. Next time I use a pressure horn. The thing I would go around the whole issue is the baseline is you drop everything when you die. But you can get certain protection similar to what we're using on the land. Basically, you can, let's say, buy a magic bag that can hold X amount of volume for very cheap, for a little piece of space where you can put in items that won't drop when you die, except for the stuff that you have in hand that always drops. It doesn't matter if you protect it or not. And secondary, you have, for that reason, protection spells. The stuff has to be renewed, and the stuff has to be fairly expensive, depending on what value or what quantity you want to put in it. That's the system that worked on a server that I created with the Ultima Online free shards. And it worked very well. Because Ultima Online is drop all, always, except for stuff that was flagged newbie.
I like to just point something out real quick. This game, the way it's shaping out to be, you're generating a lot of buzz from the Darkfall community, the Ultima community, these full loot MMOs. This is what they're based on. This is their community you're attracting. If you start making conditions and holding and restricting the players from being able to do what they love to do in those MMOs, you're gonna start like pushing them away. And I think full loot is the way to go. I think there has to be some system in there, like Yeti was saying about blue screen of death, but it doesn't have to be regarding the loot. It could be anything as of if he logs out, his character disappears. It doesn't stay in the world, like for example, like an infestation. Like there's ways around it to still keep it full loot, but you're generating that buzz for those communities, and those people already coming in already know that this game's gonna be full loot. It's gonna say it right there on the box when you get it.
Oh, if there is a box.
If there is a box, yes. I mean, in an email.
In an email.
Page.
Yeah.
It's full loot, bitch.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah. What? But what about the people who have great concerns about losing their stuff? The people that there are a lot of players out there who, if they get killed 3 times in a row and lose all their stuff each one of the times, that they're going to say, screw it, I'm done, I'm leaving this damn game because I'm getting nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
What
That's
about
what
those
I had.
people?
That's the reason why I would object to the dropping of all inventory.
Well, I think
because of that exact reason.
When you have a system like full loot in place, it opens up avenues to try to counter that in some way through gameplay, not because there's a system involved that a developer came up with and restricted you.
So,
like,
so like what Marcel said, the magic bags, and don't make it too easy. Have the magic bag return to its chest in your house or whatever, because it's magic.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I like that magic bag idea. If I was to put my vote up there, I definitely do like that idea of having something that the player can carry. Not everybody's going to have it, but the select few people on the server might actually afford this item. Make it not easy to get. Make it sickeningly high priced.
The other option would be having full drops, but also having the 2 areas. So you have the PvP area and the PvE area on the world.
That's not
Felucia
gonna.
and Trammel.
We tried that. That's not gonna help.
It killed Ultima Online, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
When they did that.
Okay.
That's why we reversed that patch part.
But I have no problems with regions. Like when you're in a city, when you're in a town that has guards all around you, maybe the looting thing is just the same. It's just that you have a lot less chance of actually being killed because the first whack they take at you, all the guards swarm on them and kill them, and then you turn around and pick up their shit.
Yeah. Maybe the solution is not to have it so that there's any change in the loot drop. That does not make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you're like a little farmer and you're getting killed and your farm's a little bit outside the city and you resurrect at the temple and the temple priests say, well, it appears that there's somebody acting in an unjust manner in your area. We're going to send this paladin with you to help protect your stuff.
Yeah, by then the stuff has probably been moved.
And just have it one of those deals where he hangs out for a little while, so if this player comes back to try to kill you again, he's got to deal with the paladin. Mm-hmm. And the paladin will sit and defend, and this will change the dynamic of farming the farmers. Because if you're going around killing every farmer in an area, and every farmer comes back with the paladin, and you manage to kill the paladin and the farmer again, they now come back with 5 paladins. Because
they multiply. Quit chopping them in half. They're like slimes.
The religious aspect of this is there are gods and there is justice and injustice, and you're going to get a bad rep for killing farmers anyways. Not only as a total loser, but as somebody who's not trustworthy in any way, shape, or form.
The farmers' union will say, "No soup for you."
Yes, no soup for you. You get no soup. No cookies. But there are ways to deal with the problem of somebody noob killing, basically, or farmer killing, by having a system that's secondary. Now, that doesn't bar the farmer from hiring somebody to come and kill them for them or defend their property. I mean, maybe, this is just a temporary thing to kind of, ward off the doing the activity. And as you get farther out into the wilderness, there's less likely a chance that you're going to get this sort of protection.
Basically, Concord.
Yeah, basically Concord, Paladin style.
Yeah.
So basically, we are targeting the hardcore player that doesn't care about losing his loot, and we're kind of pushing away all the casual players. This is my opinion. I'm playing devil's advocate here. One thing that I think World of Warcraft did extremely well is it targeted so many different audiences and different game styles for people to play the game. Whereas this is kind of like we're just saying, okay, we want the hardcore guy who doesn't care about losing all his loot on death, and that's it. Because I know
if your
for
ship
myself,
blows up, and a lot of people from the World of Warcraft crowd started playing EVE.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I understand, but still, we want to try and broaden.
Do you want the World of Warcraft crowd? That's the question, because
it's not. I use World of Warcraft as an example. I'm not specifically saying. I'm just saying they did something well because they were able to target multiple different audiences, and I think that's the best way to have a game that's successful. Is not limit yourself to X player. You want to have X, Y, and Z. And I think it's finding that middle ground where you're able to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw an idea out there real quick since we're on the dev subject with full loot. Evil made a good point about soul binding objects, and we had an alternative with, I think, Marcio. Did I say that right? With the bags from Ultima. What if we had, and this is going towards more professions and everything, just to engage gameplay, because I'm all about that when we talk about these systems. Like if you had a role as a person, you were like a necromancer, and people came to you to soulbind items that they will not drop.
Yeah, that was part of what I'm saying. As in a form of a spell for a single item, or in a form of a container for multiple items to have on your person. You can take the box. Then everything is gone.
Do we want everything dropping? I mean, it could be the fact is if you got a miner out there with a mining bag, the mining bag items do not drop. The armor drops, the stuff in the general bag drops, but all the other bags actually are secure and do not drop the items.
For heavy items, you could put in the transporting system. I don't think that Player Killer will haul 10 tons of ore back to his hideout.
Yeah. I think that the miner is actually going to be very specialized in transportation as well. And although, maybe some Player Killer out there is going to be specialized in transportation to haul all of his loot back.
Pirates, basically. Rogue pilots. Pirates.
But, I think that it's almost like we're talking about insurance in its most in a basic form, but we need to apply it to a game, and so that it's fun, because we want the people who their shit is really important to them and don't want to lose any of it to have some method of keeping that from happening, where at the same time you want people who are really into the PvP, who want to go out there and really take on the challenge of fighting unknown people, that they have a chance to get some really good loot.
Well, maybe somebody needs to create an arena. Winner take all.
I will never go to the arena, but I will kill you if you're mining. And I'm not just saying that, I'm not, just against minors. I'm just saying that, if I am playing Super Evil,
Marky beats up a 12-year-old.
Well, I have no problem
No,
with,
that 12-year-old
killing
will whoop your
Bambies.
ass.
If I'm going to be evil, I'm going to be evil all the way.
All right.
And so I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to, screw with everybody. But I recognize that while I may cause that other player some grief, that they need some way to combat that. They need some way for it to either they encounter to be fun for them or to mitigate the. I know it's not fun getting beat up, but it to be fun for them or to mitigate their inconvenience.
Here's an idea that I have with that. If you're that player that's going around and slaughtering 12-year-olds, then I think that the solution. Hold that thought. Yeah, here we go. He's gonna go grab a 12-year-old off the street. You wait and see. Oh no.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm just about,
You were saying?
okay. I'm ready. Where's the 12-year-old?
Jeez. Here's my idea with the whole loot droppings, and not dropping and who kills and the whole skill, like the whole system that you guys were basically just talking about. Why not implement some type of like color coding system? I think I had mentioned this in a previous roundtable, but then you had said to wait for when we talk about death. So, for example, if Marky Dragon's going out there killing 12-year-olds, all jokes aside, he's just going out there and killing players. If he gets to the point where he's killed so many players, maybe he gets a black name over his head, maybe, or a red name over his head, or something along those lines. Now, in the game that I'm talking about, they charge you real money to get your items back. But let's not do that. Why don't we just say that something along the lines where a black name player would maybe a higher percentage of their loot would actually drop. A red name player, same thing. Maybe a little bit less of a percentage, or whatever else it may be. So that means that you, Marky Dragon, if you're out there killing, slaughtering people, or whatever else it may be, you've got a bounty on your head. You've got a black name on your head. Maybe when you visit a town or a city, all the black name players of the region or whatever else it may be might show up. So now you've got people like myself. They're going to want to go out and specifically hunt for you because we know that you're a black name player. I know that you're going to drop your item. Yeah, remember we were talking about that.
Yeah.
That's reputation mixed with loot drop.
But let's. I think that's a little bit different than. I don't know.
Because that could be a way that the system could potentially be put into place, is colored names.
I think that is... Gosh, how does that relate to death?
Not
much. Unless you get...
Well, I guess it kind of does, though, right? I think it kind of does because of... Yeah, the percentage that somebody dropped. Yeah.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Well, let's just let me change the focus here just a little bit, and we'll come back to this and say, okay, you're dead. How do you deal with it at this point? Let's talk a little bit about resurrection, because maybe this all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we have temples that you go to? Okay, what happens when you die? Do you just appear somewhere? Are you a ghost and you have to go back someplace? Are you, do you float up into the sky and everything turns white and it's game over?
Go to I don't like the
permadeath. No, permadeath, I don't think I like that. If we went with let's say that we went with this colored system. With the death with that, if you're a black name, you get sent to jail if you die. That's it. You're in jail. If you're any other color, then you don't. You just spawn at a graveyard or whatever else it may be, and that's just it. You're in a graveyard.
Don't forget about mercenaries and contracts.
And I think that is that is what he's touching on, but it's not. I'm not so sure that that's.
See, if I wanted to be that
in
player,
the conversation. What happens?
Well, maybe it is. You know, because if I'm a player that doesn't want to go out and kill anybody, well, I'm always going to have a white name over my head, which means my percentage of my loot is not going to drop that much. So if somebody kills me, that's fantastic.
Forget about how much loot you have. Let's go back simpler. What happens when you die?
I think an idea that I had was we're giving the player the option of building inns, building whatever they want, right, out of their squares. Mm-hmm. What if we gave these players the options inside their inns to create waypoints so that it drives the player to explore the land to these inns, so that when they die, they have the option of teleporting to these waypoints. So if they explored an inn near where they died, they can teleport back to that waypoint.
And then Oleg can sell more beer.
And now they can talk about how he just got stabbed while he's drinking.
I kind of like that system, what you're saying there, Saint. It reminds me a lot of 7 Days to Die, where you can put down multiple beds. So are you saying that they could be multiple inns that somebody visits, that they can pick that spawn point?
Yeah, so not only do you die and just become a spirit and have to run through the world back to your body, but you can actually, like World of Warcraft, but if you had the option of when you die just going back to a waypoint that you have explored, say like you talk to the innkeeper, you place the bed there, yada yada yada, whatever, it'll make you more
a bed or something, yeah.
Exactly. So you already lost your loot. You know what I'm saying? But if you have the option of porting near where you died because you went and talked to the innkeeper, you have a chance of going back there and getting your loot. Because remember, guys, we're not only talking about PvP. What if I die to a rabbit?
A pig.
Or a pig.
A pig.
Come on, guys. What are you saying here? Just because my first encounter didn't go so well.
By the way, we need to petition the makers of the game to turn that pig into a heroic level mob.
Yeah.
Because they kill the first kill in the entirety of Neosland's Marquee Dragon by a pig. That pig got some serious levels out of you, bitch.
Now
World boss.
Here's the thing, right?
You're inside a tin can.
Alright, so here's the whole thing, right? I drop all my loot, I spawn in an inn with nothing. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, like what happens if you're in the middle of a pretty, heavily orc infested area? You've got nothing now?
You're totally orced.
Yeah,
well, that's just it. Now, is that going to make you want to come back to the game, though?
Here's the thing.
You're dead, and are you going to want to come back to the game?
If you're laying down waypoints, perhaps you also make it so that there's the ability to leave some stuff in the inn. Like
maybe when you check in that you actually have a locker or something like that. So you're going to go out adventuring, and so you carry a bunch of stuff with you to the next town, and you're going to go adventuring the whole area, and you rent a locker, which is your, whatever, or a chest, and you put all your extra stuff in, and you go out adventuring, and if you die, you have extra supplies there.
Okay,
we're playing Infestation with swords now.
Here, what about this? What about this? I'm carrying said loot to said waypoint because I want to farm that area,
and on
my way, I might die on the way. Now I'm not only losing my gear, I'm losing my backup gear.
Yeah,
that's the risk. But that's the risk.
It's a risk, yes.
Yeah.
It is a risk, but you've also got to think of the replayability. Are people going to want to?
There are secured methods of transportation that we've talked about and everything. We've talked about like portals and stuff like that. And if you are going, city to city, town to town, or whatever, and they have a portal, and you have the ability to go through that portal, and the cities are relatively safe, then relatively. I don't think that anything should ever be 100% safe. I think maybe it should be 99.9 in a couple of spots, but there should always be a chance that something can happen. And
that makes sense.
And so, I think that there'd be ways to mitigate exactly what Yeti is talking about. And we've talked about some other stuff about other, transportation types, where we've even talked about having other people who do transportation.
Yeah. coaches
items.
and escorts.
And you're paying them, and let's say that they have insurance or something like that, or whatever, to make sure that if the shit doesn't get there, you get paid, you know, or whatever.
Replacement items.
Yeah, maybe it's just, maybe it is as simple as replacement items. Maybe it's not that simple.
Okay, well, let's put it in another context. I just cleared out these killer epic mobs, got some good loot, heading back to the inn, I get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say there's these people that hunt these caravans that are hired for protection.
Yeah, that's
they work
too.
together. Let's say I'm a transporter. And
I know you're just
Santos,
a nice guy, and that's
no,
the problem.
but I'm playing devil's advocate here, and I think it's important.
Doing it rather well, actually.
But let's say that Santos is my buddy. I'm like, yo, Santos, you're a bandit. You raid caravans. I'm a caravan. Let's work together. When I got somebody with some good loot, I'll give you a call and you come and kill them. So my reputation isn't stained. So there's a lot of things that you got to take into consideration.
I would
I'm just
disagree.
playing devil's advocate because
I would totally disagree that your reputation is not stained. If you are a cargo transporter and you keep getting raided for really good loot, people are going to notice.
Yeah.
I know I would notice.
After how many times? That's
if
the
we
question.
have,
well, that's
if we have crafter inscription, the most of the items in the game are created by other players, so that it's possible to have basically a signature of every crafter on every item, and when stuff pops up in shops that has been previously taken by an event like you described, people will be able to connect the dots.
I mean, it's a great scam, and
I'm not saying they're not going to connect the dots, but how long is it going to take before that actually happens?
You have two choices here. You have to you have the extra dimensional system like every other MMO has, where the dev events is scripted, the respawn, the stuff is soul bound. Or you have the in-game game mechanics that basically equalize the things along the lines of realism within the fantasy world. And that's the decision you have to make. You can have one or the other, not both. That doesn't work. And that's the decision we kind of have to get across what we want.
And also, as game developers, as NeoJack, as the team, they have to make it so any systems they implement, the first couple of levels or the first hour, 2 hours you're in this world, they have to teach you as a player what this game is about and how to use those mechanics. So that when you do die in the world and you're saying, what about replayability? Well, you make it engaging so that if you do die, it's probably not easier to get your loot back depending on the loot you had, but it's still accessible to get back to right where you were, without making it a daunting task or making it repetitive or stale. And that's the biggest thing that they need to come across is if you teach the player how to do this within the first 5 levels, let's say, of gameplay, if they die, they're going to already feel like they know enough to get back to right where they were, creating that replayability.
Newbie back. For the not Ultima Online players, that's another thing. The first items you spawn with, or newbie kit, I should name it, is stuff that doesn't drop because it's no use to hire players. It's basically
it was like a sword, but it was a practice sword.
It's a real weapon, but it helps you to defend yourself against lower level monsters or weaker monsters. Maybe fend off a player that is a little more, a little longer in the game than you are, but you don't lose the stuff when you die. If you find more stuff, that has to be protected by another system. The newbie stuff shouldn't be lost in the first 5 minutes of the game. I had a friend that started playing Ultima Online after me, and he went to a place where Mombats were, and they killed him over and over and over again, and he stopped playing within a day.
That's the thing, right? I like that whole idea of, the difference between level or skill would dictate how much of the items drop, because once you get past that starter kit, right, and you start getting loot, you die, let's say there's these high skilled players come running through and they see you like, oh, let's just kill this guy because he's there, and you lose all
That's
your
going to
stuff.
happen anyway. That's not something you would be able to prevent, and you shouldn't.
I'm not saying
unless
prevent
he's
it.
in a safer area, and that's the way. When you're starting a game, you don't run into the dragon's horde in the first 5 minutes. You make
that I
your way
understand.
from the city to the slums or forest, and then maybe the first graveyard with low-level zombies or something. And that's the learning curve the player has.
I agree there has to be consequences, but the consequences have to be justifiable.
Yeah.
And they have to, you can't be, because, for example, let's say I start playing this game and I spend some money, in-game money, and I buy some nice weapons, because, I'm like, yeah, let's kill some mobs, let's try and level fast and get some skills up and stuff like this. And then I run into these high-level guys who are running through to meet their friend who just started playing the game, and they kill me, and I lose everything. And there was no way I could have possibly won that fight. I shouldn't lose everything because they're so much stronger than I am.
That's where the newbie kit comes in again. And when you contain a secure container like the magic bag from before into the newbie kit that maybe holds 5 items, no matter what, no matter how heavy, and you can have that item for, let's say, the first 7 days real time. That would alleviate your problem.
You're also basing this on having everything on your body. At some point, you're gonna own a piece of land. You're gonna have a bank. You're gonna have a chest to put your stuff in. If you're running around with everything you own on your body, it's your fault you lost it all.
I'm not saying everything I own, but let's say, like I said earlier, I killed a high-level mob, and I get a bunch of good loot, and I can't fit it all into my magic bag, and I'm not that high skill level, and then, like, once again, I run across these 4 or 5 guys that are super high level, I lose everything that's not in my magic bag. There has to be... I'm not saying that you should be protected and not lose anything, but I think, like it was stated earlier by Richard, that depending on the difference between skill level depicts the percentage of loot that drops.
That gets totally unfair at a point. When newbies gank high-level players, and that has happened in games where this system exists, the person that's high-level will lose everything, and the newbies split the stuff among them, but when the newbies die, basically nothing is ventured, nothing is gained on one side or the other.
Maybe you shouldn't be allowed to attack anybody if they're certain levels higher or lower than you.
That's completely messing up the system that we established so far. Like I said, you can have it one way or the other. Either you're using the extra dimensional game mechanics that basically dictates things work that way, or you're using logical in-game mechanics and make the thing unique and interesting. It's going to be frustrating for people when they die 10 times in a row, but at least they have their stuff when you use a newbie kit-like system.
There's also an extra bit we could probably add, is if a high level attacks a low level and literally just picks up the ore they've got and then rejects the rest of it actually goes back to the player that's died. So
or it's still on the ground for when they run back and pick it up.
It's probably better that way.
If I was a high level, I wouldn't leave anything behind.
Yeti, let me ask you a question. When you die in infestation, what do? How do you deal with that?
I don't care. I just
pay
keep going.
29 GC and run to your stuff.
You either have stuff in your global inventory and you pick it up and you go out, you re-equip yourself, or you run out with just a knife or whatever and try and pick your stuff up again. What's so different?
But I have a fair fight because I am on the same playing field as they are. It comes down to pure skill, not level.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
But there's no level
this game
either.
Well, it's skill. It's skill based, right? If I just started playing the game and I played a few days and I haven't really got my skills up to where they should be, and then some guy who plays the game every day, 8 hours a day, and is raising his skill level, runs by, that's not on an even playing field. Where an infestation, if I have a gun and he has a gun, if he kills me, kudos to him because he was better than I was. Where this, it depends on your skill.
Yeah, but
You
even
can't fix
then,
that problem.
there is always the chance that that guy that you think you can kill really easily will end up not dying as easily as you think.
Because he hacks. No, I'm just playing.
Well, no, he's actually really buff because he's a miner and he knows how to smelt all that ore into some really fabulous armor.
No, I meant infestation, but okay.
And maybe he doesn't have any offensive skills. Maybe his only skill, as far as combat goes, is pure defense. And you're sitting there hacking at him and hacking at him and hacking at him, and all he's doing is dodging.
100% evasion. Yeah, I had that once.
100% evasion, and you're sitting there going, "I'm going to kill you," and all he's doing is sidestepping and ducking, and you're like, "Well, fuck this. There's no point to this."
Or you can use protective magic for that.
Exactly.
That's all stuff that's logic and touchable in the game. That's not something that a message pop up and you respawn.
Yeah.
That's kind of I call it stupid MMO mechanics, because that does break the immersion.
Yes.
I just want to point out something that Darkfall does really well. They have the same full loot system that we're talking about here, but we're here to make like the community, right? We're here to like make lands, rent out lands. Like this game is gonna encourage people to group together, correct? I'm right on that. Okay, so in Darkfall, there's guilds that are there's called noob-friendly guilds, and if we made a system in this game that encouraged groups of people to try to recruit newbies into their guild and give them a perk for that, they can teach these people the ropes, so that when they go out there and they lose all their loot, it's not that hard to come back from losing everything.
Yeah.
And that's what Darkfall does really well. It engages the community. The community is what helps drives the gameplay. And if you just baby these people, you're not really going to get anything out of it, but just people bitching about the loot system or the combat system.
Yeah, the newer people probably wouldn't be able to carry a huge amount anyway, and to sort of get your skill levels up to be able to carry a lot more, or then learn crafting for horse carts and things like that. So, I mean, even earlier on, the newbie wouldn't be carrying much. He'll be returning back home quite frequently. I mean, the other option is when you protect a town with guards, that town plus 10% around the outside of the town, depending on the size of the town, is also protected by the guards. So newbies can go in that 10% zone or 20% zone and do all the farming, all the resource collecting they want, and they have the protection of the town guards still with them there.
Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. I was going for that too. But back to the mentoring system, that's actually a good idea that some games have that, where high level, and most games have levels, the player can take a newbie and show him the ropes and basically maybe invite them later into his guild or something. That's kind of what happens in EVE.
Yeah.
A lot of these newbie guilds are actually like, or they're not even newbie guilds. They're literally just guilds that want to encourage newbies to join them. Yes, they teach them up, but the main reason is for cheap slaves. They teach them how to farm wood, mine, everything like that. But
why not?
They help out the newbies, help out the town. So therefore, there's no negative against it. People actually encourage that, and people with huge amounts of newbies sort of run classes and stuff like that to encourage more people, and they get a name for themselves. That way, the town can build up so much quicker than if you just have the sort of few people just growing steadily and the town growing. This way, the numbers get a lot bigger, a lot quicker, and everything gets built up. The money that's produced is phenomenal because there's so many more people playing in that same town. So I think it doesn't need to be a newbie system because that will work itself out anyway.
That makes perfect sense.
And that's in many games. I mean,
okay.
I don't know any game that's got newbie system.
Let me try and reiterate all of this. So it's full loot. except if you have an insurance type method on some of the items, whether it
Or
be
soulbound.
whether it be like okay, so some of the Kickstarter items are soulbound. Maybe your initial starting weapons will be soulbound. They're just not very strong. They're kind of dull swords or whatever. And the Marcel's magic bag idea or whatever. And so we've got that. We've got that. The regions are kind of that there's areas that are higher safety, and that's probably where newbies would be, and so they would die less often at the hands of griefers or player killers, because they wouldn't necessarily frequent those areas as much because they won't have as much success. And then we've talked about resurrection and where that happens, how that happens. We really haven't identified anything totally in that area, except that we've had the idea of inns, that you can bind yourself to a local inn.
I think when the game starts initially, I think it should be strictly reserved for temples, and as players acquire more magic, I think there should be magic or religious shrines and stuff like that the players build in new places, and that way you see them. It's not just you have a waypoint at an inn. There's some player decided that he's going to build a shrine at the inn and dedicate it to a god, and that god will of course send some priests, and this is where you start resurrecting. And if you just so happen to keep some extra stuff at the inn in your room, you've got your rental space and you got some extra items, you can go from the shrine to the inn and get your stuff and start adventuring again.
Mm-hmm.
That way the players have a say in where it expands.
How about you have at the start of the game you have the temples of different gods, and then you can basically an inn owner goes and lets someone craft a statue. That statue gets enchanted by the priest and takes it into his inn. So you have your waypoint system.
Exactly.
And a high-level priest can also go in the field, find a player that's died as a ghost or a spirit or something, and brings them back to life without items. And then you have res on the spot. Within a short duration of time, the body, including all items, just raises up again, and the player can play once more. And maybe a nature-based version of that too, some potion or whatever.
I think that all sounds fine. I just feel like there's a point of caution about bringing too much religious overtones in. But a spiritual is okay, religious is not, is how I feel.
Tell that to every D&D player.
Yeah, exactly.
The religions in a fantasy world, we're not saying that you have to follow your, our Lord and Savior, blah blah blah, or the second prophet, John Smith. I'm just saying that there is a generic set of gods in the world. Whether we believe them or not is not the point. The point is we need a system that makes
the characters do.
Yeah, the characters may believe them, but the point is you have a system that makes sense for the immersion factor.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the difference between having a religious system and just a sleeping bag that somebody rents?
Not much.
Not much. It's some legend and lore behind it, storyline behind it.
A lot of people like immersion, and that's just respawning because you push a button in a message is a lot less immersive than have to travel to a shrine or a temple or something, or have someone perform a ritual to get you back on your feet. That's just basically role-playing and immersion.
Yeah. Now, for instance, in Eve, you don't have a god, you don't have any religion. Well, at least unless you're a Mar. But in Eve, it is a press of the button because you just had your consciousness transported back to a lab where you were implanted in a new body.
Yeah, there it's technology and sci-fi based. Perfectly okay.
That totally makes sense in that realm. I could be immersed in that and be all like, this is clone 553 because I'm the worst PvP player in the universe, and I just died yet again.
Okay,
the point is not the religious factor. The point is you have a starting point that makes sense in the game world.
Exactly.
And allowing the players to expand that and change it, I mean, maybe they come up with, maybe they find an evil god and start worshiping him, and he gives, I mean, all of a sudden you have a lot of different ways to do things. Maybe somebody has a potion of resurrection and they, you're lying there dead and they put it in your mouth and you suddenly revive and you have all your items because nobody looted you.
Evil and I think alike.
Okay,
that's not necessarily good.
We are out of time. So I think that there's a few loose ends on this. I think that there's a starting point for the foundation for the devs, but I think we have a few loose ends, and so we'll probably end up revisiting this subject. I don't feel like it's 100% complete. I feel like it's like around 70%. And yeah, so okay, well, that is it for this episode. Thank you everybody for coming. If you're watching live, hang on, don't go anywhere. Right after the credits of the show, we're going to do a drawing, and that drawing, for those people of you who are live here, is there's land, there's subscription, there's baby dragons, and a poop scoot. So I'll explain all those in more detail in just a moment. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we shall see you all again soon with more announcements of more good stuff, which is on the way. I'm just so ready to announce it, but it's not ready to show everybody yet. So, okay. Thanks, guys.
All right.
See you.